Prince Rogers Nelson entered the world on the 7th of June 1958 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, born into a family where music flowed through their veins like blood. His father, John L. Nelson, performed as a jazz pianist under the stage name Prince Rogers, while his mother, Mattie Della, sung with her husband's band. The young prince was literally named after his father's stage persona, a prophetic christening that seemed to foretell his future reign over the music industry. From the moment he could reach a piano, Prince displayed an almost supernatural connection to music. By age 7, he had composed his first song, Funk Machine, a remarkable achievement that hinted at the genius brewing within. His childhood, however, was far from a fairy tale. His parents' tumultuous marriage ended in divorce when he was 10, leaving emotional scars that would later seep into his music's raw emotional depth. Prince bounced between his mother's and father's homes, never quite settling, never quite belonging. This rootlessness would become a defining characteristic of his artistic persona, a man who belonged everywhere and nowhere, who existed in his own dimension. Music became his refuge, his language, his salvation. The shy, small-statured boy with the enormous afro picked up instrument after instrument with frightening ease. Piano, guitar, drums, bass, Prince mastered them all before graduating high school. He would lock himself away for hours, teaching himself to play by ear, developing an almost telepathic relationship with sound. By his teenage years, he had formed his first band, Grand Central, later renamed Champagne, performing at local venues and school dances around Minneapolis. Even then, those who witnessed him perform sensed they were watching something extraordinary unfold. The Ascension. From Minneapolis to stardom. At 17, Prince recorded his first demo in a local studio, playing every instrument himself, a practice that would become his trademark. The tape found its way to Owen Husney, a local advertising executive turned manager who recognized the raw talent immediately. Husney shopped Prince to various record labels, and in 1977, Warner Brothers. Records offered the 18-year-old an unprecedented deal: creative control over his music. For a debut artist, this was virtually unheard of, but executives recognized that attempting to mold Prince would be futile. He was a force unto himself. His debut album, For You, released in 1978, announced Prince's arrival with its bold declaration printed on the cover: produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince. Every note, every harmony, every beat came from his hands and mind. While the album achieved modest commercial success, it established Prince as an artist of serious ambition and prodigious talent. The follow-up, Prince 1979, gave him his first taste of mainstream success with the singles I Wanna Be Your Lover and Why You Wanna Treat Me So Bad. But it was his third album, Dirty Mind 1980, that truly revealed Prince's revolutionary vision. The album was sexually explicit, genre-defying, and unapologetically provocative. Prince appeared on the cover in a trench coat, bikini briefs, and a rebellious stare. He was challenging every convention, every boundary, every expectation of what a black artist should be. Controversy 1981 continued this trajectory, with its title track directly addressing issues of race, sexuality, and identity. Prince was creating a new paradigm, a space where funk, rock, pop, and new wave collided with sexual liberation and spiritual questioning. But these albums were merely the prelude to what came next. Purple Rain, the peak of genius. In 1982, Prince released 1999, and the world finally caught up to his vision. The title track became an anthem for a generation facing nuclear anxiety and end-times fears, transforming apocalyptic dread into a celebration of life. Little Red Corvette crossed over to rock radio, breaking down racial barriers in the Reagan-era music industry. Prince was no longer just a successful artist. He was becoming a phenomenon. But nothing could prepare the world for Purple Rain. Released in 1984 as both an album and a film, Purple Rain catapulted Prince into the stratosphere of superstardom. The album spent 24 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard 200, sold over 25 million copies worldwide, and produced iconic hits like When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, and the epic title track. The film, semi-autobiographical and raw, showcased not just Prince's musical genius, but his vulnerability, his pain, his hunger for connection. He won an Academy Award for Best Original Song Score, a Grammy, and became one of the biggest stars on the planet. The mid to late 1980 seconds saw Prince operating at a superhuman level of productivity and creativity. Around the World in a Day, 1985, Parade, 1986, Sign o' the Times, 1987, Love Sexy, 1988. Each album pushed boundaries, experimented with sound, and challenged audiences. Sign of the Times, in particular, is considered by many critics to be his masterpiece, a sprawling double album that addressed AIDS, poverty, drug addiction, and spiritual redemption, while still making you want to dance. Prince built Paisley Park, his massive recording complex and creative sanctuary in Chanhassen, Minnesota. It became his Neverland, his Xanadu, a place where he could create at any hour, invite other musicians to jam until dawn, and maintain complete control over his artistic vision. He was famously prolific, recording hundreds of songs that would never see official release, filling vaults with enough material for multiple lifetimes of artists. The Symbol, The Slave, The Battle for Freedom. As the 1990 seconds dawned, Prince's relationship with Warner Brothers Records began to deteriorate. The label wanted to release his albums on a schedule that would maximize profits. Prince wanted to release music constantly, immediately, as soon as the creative fire struck him. He viewed the traditional music industry model as a prison, constraining his artistic freedom and profiting disproportionately from his labor. In 1993, Prince made one of the most controversial decisions of his career. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol, a combination of the male and female gender symbols. He became the artist formerly known as Prince, or simply the artist. More provocatively, he began appearing in public with the word slave written on his face. "If you don't own your masters own you," he declared. Prince was waging war against the traditional music industry structure, arguing that recording contracts were exploitative and that artists should own their creative work. Warner Brothers. Executives were baffled and frustrated, but Prince was adamant. He released albums at a furious pace, some brilliant, some erratic, flooding the market in an attempt to fulfill his contractual obligations and gain his freedom. The public struggled to understand. Was this genius or madness? Principle or ego? In retrospect, Prince was prophetic. He foresaw the digital revolution and the way technology would empower artists to control their own distribution and destiny. He was ahead of his time, fighting battles that wouldn't be widely understood for another decade. In 2000, after his contract with Warner Bros. Finally expired, Prince reclaimed his name. Prince was back, and he owned his masters. He had won his freedom, though the battle had cost him commercially and in public perception during much of the 1990 seconds. The Millennium Prince, Reinvention and Resurgence. The 2000s saw Prince reinvent himself repeatedly, embracing the internet while simultaneously fighting against it, releasing albums independently, and staging legendary live performances that reminded the world of his unparalleled talent. His Super Bowl XLI halftime show in 2007, performed in pouring rain, is widely considered the greatest halftime performance in the event's history. As rain poured down, Prince launched into Purple Rain. The water, adding a cinematic quality to an already legendary song. It was transcendent. He became a Jehovah's Witness, which surprised many given his sexually provocative past work. But Prince had always been deeply spiritual, constantly seeking truth and meaning. His faith informed his later work and lifestyle, though he never lost his edge or his mysterious allure. Prince continued to tour extensively, often announcing shows at the last minute, performing intimate club gigs one night and arena spectaculars the next. His live performances were mythical, 3-hour shows where he would play 20 guitars, dozens of songs, and leave audiences transformed. He was a consummate perfectionist, rehearsing endlessly, demanding the best from his musicians, and delivering transcendent experiences. Yet beneath the performances and the productivity, signs of strain were beginning to show. The final act, Pain, Pills, and Purple Shadows. By the 2010 seconds, those close to Prince noticed changes. The man who had once leaped off speakers in high heels now moved more carefully. Decades of athletic performances, splits, jumps, dancing in heels on hard stages had taken a severe toll on his body. Prince suffered from chronic pain, particularly in his hips. He needed surgery but reportedly refused due to his religious beliefs, which prohibited blood transfusions that might be necessary during such procedures. Instead, Prince turned to pain medication. The man who had never drunk alcohol, smoked cigarettes, or used recreational drugs, who had written songs condemning drug use, found himself dependent on prescription opioids to manage his pain and maintain his relentless performance schedule. In the spring of 2016, Prince continued touring despite his worsening condition. On April 7, his private plane made an emergency landing in Moline, Illinois. The official story was that Prince had the flu, but in reality, he had overdosed on fentanyl, a synthetic opioid 50 times more potent than heroin. Paramedics administered Narcan, a drug that reverses opioid overdoses, and saved his life. He was hospitalized briefly, then released. Friends and associates urged him to seek serious help, to cancel tours, to rest. Prince refused. He had always been intensely private about his personal struggles, maintaining an image of superhuman capability. Admitting vulnerability, admitting addiction, seemed impossible for him. Prince returned to Paisley Park. On April 20, he visited a local record store, Record Store Day, and assured fans he was fine. "Wait a few days before you waste any prayers," he told them with a smile, a cryptic comment that would haunt those who heard it. On the 21st of April 2016, staff members at Paisley Park found Prince unresponsive in an elevator. Emergency services arrived within minutes. They performed CPR, tried desperately to revive him, but it was too late. Prince Rogers Nelson was pronounced dead at 10:07 a.m. He was 57 years old. The aftermath, mystery, legacy, and purple rain. The Midwest Medical Examiner's Office ruled Prince's death an accidental overdose of fentanyl. The investigation revealed that Prince had been taking what he believed to be Vicodin, but the pills were counterfeit, laced with fentanyl. It remains unclear where he obtained the pills, whether he knew they were counterfeit, or who, if anyone, was supplying them. No criminal charges were ever filed. The mystery surrounding his final days mirrors the enigma he cultivated throughout his life. The world mourned in purple. Buildings worldwide, from the Superdome in New Orleans to City Hall in San Francisco to the National Portrait Gallery in London, lit up in purple light. Thousands gathered outside Paisley Park, leaving flowers, notes, and purple balloons. Radio stations worldwide played Prince marathons. Artists across all genres paid tribute, acknowledging the debt they owed to his innovation and fearlessness. President Barack Obama issued a statement. "Few artists have influenced the sound and trajectory of popular music more distinctly, or touched quite so many people with their talent." The sentiment was echoed globally. Prince wasn't just a pop star. He was an artist in the truest sense, someone who lived and died for his art. But questions lingered. Could his death have been prevented? Why didn't those around him force him into treatment after the April 7 overdose? How did someone so controlled, so disciplined, end up addicted to opioids? Was his fierce independence and privacy ultimately his downfall? Perhaps the tragedy lies in the very qualities that made Prince extraordinary: his relentless drive, his refusal to show weakness, his determination to perform regardless of physical cost. The same fire that produced 39 studio albums and hundreds of unreleased songs, that drove him to master multiple instruments and revolutionize popular music, also prevented him from slowing down, from asking for help, from accepting his own mortality and limitations. The Purple Eternal Prince's death threw Paisley Park into chaos. He had left no will, which seemed impossible for someone so controlling. His estate became contested, with numerous siblings and alleged heirs emerging. The vault, legendary among fans, supposedly containing thousands of unreleased recordings, became the subject of intense speculation and legal maneuvering. In the years since his death, several posthumous releases have emerged: Piano and a Microphone, 1983, originals and expansions of classic albums. Each release offers new glimpses into his creative process, but they also highlight what was lost. The curator wasn't there to decide what should be heard and when. Prince's influence on music is immeasurable. His fusion of genres, his blurring of racial and sexual boundaries, his championing of artistic ownership, his sheer musical virtuosity all continue to inspire new generations. Artists from Beyoncé to Bruno Mars, from The Weeknd to Janelle Monáe, owe profound debts to his innovations. But beyond the statistics and accolades, Prince represented something essential: the possibility of being wholly, unapologetically yourself. He was short of stature but towered over everyone. He was black in a white-dominated rock world and never diminished his blackness. He was sexually fluid before such concepts entered mainstream discourse. He wore high heels and lace but was undeniably masculine. He was contradictions made harmony, paradoxes transformed into art. In his music, in his performances, in his very existence, Prince demonstrated that you could be anything, everything, or nothing, that the only limitations were those you accepted. He lived as he performed, without a net, taking risks, creating beauty and chaos in equal measure. The elevator at Paisley Park, where he died, has become a shrine. The building itself is now a museum, where fans make pilgrimages to walk the halls where genius once resided. But Prince's true memorial isn't in any building or monument. It's in the music, eternally spinning, eternally fresh, eternally purple. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. He sang in Let's Go Crazy. Life, with all its joy and pain, ecstasy and sorrow, mystery and revelation. Prince got through it by transforming it into art, by making us dance and cry and think and feel. He left too soon, under circumstances tinged with tragedy and what-ifs, but he left behind a universe of music, a legacy of fearlessness, and the enduring image of a slight man in purple, guitar in hand, smiling enigmatically, as if he knew secrets the rest of us could only glimpse in our dreams. The Purple One is gone, but the purple rain falls eternal, washing over all who listen, reminding us that some things, beauty, genius, soul, never truly die.